Hello there, little demons. Jules here for WhatCulture.com, back again with another episode of the awesomely named and awfully hosted Choose Your Own Adventure, the weekly medieval themed format where I, the crown Jules of WhatCulture.com, take a list chosen by you. Yes, you, the person who is less puffy than last week. Thank you for the kind words in the comments, but still pretty tired over here. I don't know what's wrong with me. Am I dying? Let me know in the comments below. Yes, you get to decide what list I dole out to you each and every week. And this week we have none other to thank than Sweetened with Gluten. What a great username there for their suggestion of video games that died but came back stronger. And you know what? Even though we are eating very, very well here in 2023 as video gamers, we're possibly a little too full because there are great games that are just going under the radar, and that's been happening for absolutely decades now. So what we're going to do today is show you the ones that basically were like, right, well, we're not going to give up. We're going to persevere. We're going to come back, and we're going to come back stronger. But you know what? I'm not going to be talking about No Man's Sky, Final Fantasy XIV. We've covered them to death. So instead, let's take a look at some other games that died but came back stronger, which is the title of this list. I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com. I've done it a roundabout way, but you know where I'm going. Dan, just get me out of this intro. Number 8, Hitman 2016. 2016's Hitman was a soft reboot for the stealth action franchise, with developers IO Interactive boldly deciding to drip-feed the game's missions in an episodic format, with the 6 episodes releasing over the span of around 8 months. And here's the thing, each one of these episodes was absolutely fantastic. It really felt that the devs approached them just saying, look, we're not treating them as part of an overall massive game. We're going to focus on the granular experience and then stitch them together after the fact. And it allowed all of them to have a really unique flavor and tone that didn't feel like they would just go, right, let's just add in a few more things here or borrow that from the other level. And as a result, everything felt unique and a very, very brilliant experience. Problem is that sales did not reflect this greatness. This led publisher Square Enix to drop IO Interactive as a partner a few months later, seemingly putting the kibosh on the developers' plans to establish Hitman as a live service platform in perpetuity. Yet, in the years that followed, Hitman enjoyed a major comeback. IO partnered with Warner Brothers to release Hitman 2, which ditched the episodic format and in turn enjoyed stronger sales, though still suffered from releasing in a crowded period in late 2018. But it nevertheless performed well enough for Hitman 3 to release in 2021, which went on to become the series' most commercially successful entry. And earlier this year, IO Interactive rebranded this trilogy as a whole new sort of mega Hitman franchise, which is called World of Assassination. And that is a far cry from how things started all the way back with that episodic format. Number 7, Halo the Master Chief Collection. Now, on paper, it seems like a surefire and very easy win for Microsoft to basically just go, right, take all of the original Halo games that were great, except for the weird Gravemind sections and the ending of Halo 2 that was basically just a buy Halo 3 advert, but I'm digressing here, repackage all of them and put them on newer platforms. Sound good? Sound good? Why is it so bad then? Well, Halo the Master Chief Collection hit storefronts in November 2014 to intense vitriol from an understandably pissed-off fanbase, given the game's atrocious matchmaking made it very difficult to play the series' beloved multiplayer, and many encountered graphical glitches during the campaigns. And 343 Industries certainly took their sweet old time fixing this game, yet by the time that it was ported to PC in 2019, the overwhelming majority of these issues had been fully resolved. And even though there was a mass exodus of players who were just like, this is just not it, Chief, quite literally in this case, because of the fact that the gameplay was just so damn good and all of the issues had mostly been fixed by 2019, players were just like, go on then, let's have a quick game on it. It's just one of those games that you just feel like you're constantly caught in its gravitational orbit. You're pushed away by the likes of Guardians, but then you're brought back by just how good the matchmaking online can be. Oh, I tell you what, man, the days of Halo 2, dual-wielding needlers running around being a cheeky little scamp. I lost all my matches, of course I did. I was dual-wielding needlers. I had a great time, though. And 343 ultimately went beyond that, though, restoring cut content and adding mod support, ensuring that today the Master Chief Collection is one of the most value-rich games that you could actually possibly buy. Number 6, Street Fighter III. So if you thought the previous entry was a bit of a slam dunk, when it came to Street Fighter III, it seemed like every decision made possible was the wrong one. I mean, if you're going to do a Street Fighter game, you probably want to include at least some of the OG characters. Understandably, if you want to add in new ones, that's perfectly fine. But having a brand new roster pretty much is a hard ask to begin with. And then making it exclusively for the Dreamcast and when you port it from the arcades, that's a decision. Not a good one. And then you put in unbalanced gameplay and a lackluster single-player offering, and what you have, is Street Fighter III, which obviously commercially was a flop, seeing as the Dreamcast was a depressingly doomed platform with a heavily limited install base. Yet, a year later, Capcom released Street Fighter III Third Strike, which addressed many player complaints and added 5 new characters to the roster, most notably fan-favourite Chun-Li. Though initially only available on the Dreamcast, Capcom then ported it to the PS2 and Xbox in 2004, ensuring that most every Street Fighter fan could actually get their mitts on it. And thanks to all the effort and tweaks made here, Third Strike actually ended up being one of the most acclaimed entries in the fighting franchise's entire history, and nowadays you can get it on pretty much any console, which is fantastic. So yeah, if you want to go and play one of the best games in the Street Fighter franchise, there's never been an easier time to do it. Hooray! Number 5. Among Us. Now, it's easy to forget that the multiplayer social deduction game Among Us actually first released in 2018, yet largely fell upon deaf ears until streamers en masse began playing it during the early lockdown periods of the pandemic. The paranoia-laced gameplay combined with its inherently social qualities allowed socially distanced friends to interact in a unique way, ensuring that a game which would have otherwise evaporated into the ether of Steam's nebulous content algorithm became a stonking success overnight. By September 2020, Among Us had over 100 million downloads. That is a far cry from 2018 when nobody had heard about this game. In fact, Among Us proved successful enough that developer Inner Sloth ultimately decided to cancel their planned sequel and simply focus on improving the original game, which had evidently sold far beyond their wildest dreams. And you know what? Credit to them for doing that, because what they did was they were like, well, we've got an easy opportunity to make a ton of money, but let's not do that and actually improve our game so that people actually champion it and end up playing it more. That's good business. That is good business. Number 4. Rainbow Six Siege. Now, it is weird to think of Siege as being anything other than a rampant success, but those who do only see it in terms of the, "Whee, this is pretty good," forget the initial first few months because, dog dick. That's what it was. The online tactical shooter launched in December 2015 to broadly positive reviews, though many dinged the game for its sluggish progression system and lack of meaningful content. Initial sales were soft enough to suggest that the game's days were basically numbered, yet Ubisoft refused to simply let it die, instead continuing to support the game as a live service title with additional post-launch content and gameplay updates. This allowed Siege's player base to unexpectedly flourish, and within 2 years of release, the game counted 25 million registered players. Now, as much as live service titles are rightly dinged nowadays for just being easy cash grabs that milk their player base dry, Siege proved that you didn't have to do that. Admittedly, it has had a fair few stumbles across its time, but for the most part it's been generally good, actually rewarding players when they needed to be rewarded and only charging them little bits of treasure for skins and the like. So I can't give it a full commendation. I never will for a live service game, but it gets like an Orange Cassidy half thumb. Yeah, that's as much as it's getting from me. Hell, Siege has actually been successful enough that Ubisoft has outright stated that they probably won't ever make a sequel, instead preferring to operate the existing game as a continually evolving platform, which is pretty damn impressive indeed. Number 3. Star Wars Battlefront 2. Oh, I remember the good old days of Star Wars Battlefront 2's launch. What a time. Didn't need to keep the heating on there because the entire world was burning down at that point, it seems. I mean, seriously, there was some good that came out of the absolutely disastrous launch period, which was the fact that countries around the world actually took action against predatory gambling mechanics when kids were involved. That's good, but it was definitely a bad time to be associated with Star Wars Battlefront 2. It's basically like walking around having a huge sort of pillory stone around your neck saying, "Please kick me in the shins." But in the years following its 2017 release, DICE not only simplified the progression system, but released a bevy of new content for free, including playable heroes, villains, maps, and modes. And while it's undeniably horrendous that EA thought that they could get away with the original release date of the game, they at least gave DICE the latitude to keep on working on it and in turn eventually deliver what fans should have been able to enjoy from day one. I mean, yeah, the single player still absolutely stinks like smelly cheese, but at the same time, that multiplayer, pretty alright. Number 2, Titanfall 2. Now, unlike many other games on this list, quality was never an issue for Titanfall 2. Having a terrible release date was, because EA made the extremely ill-advised decision to release it in a massively crowded window where it faced stiff competition from 3 higher-profile shooter sequels, Gears of War 4, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, and EA's own Battlefield 1. And as a result, Titanfall 2 initially flopped commercially, yet developer Respawn Entertainment nevertheless continued to support the game. And here's the thing, many people have attested to how great this game is, including myself and very loudly Scott Tailford. Like, honestly, you get him going or just say the words Titanfall 2 and prepare yourself for a 2-hour TED Talk and why you're wrong for not having played it. But the thing is that most of the world couldn't actually enjoy it. It was locked on an older platform by this time and people were just like, yeah, it's good, but it's not worth dusting off the old console that's sitting gathering dust in the attic. Until 2020, when it was finally released on Steam and everyone was like, yeah, why did this game fail? It's brilliant. Yeah, honestly, being a Titanfall 2 player right now has never been better. But you know what could be better? That would be EA finally announcing that Titanfall 3 is in the works. Come on. And number 1, Drive Club. Now, prior to its release, Sony hyped up Drive Club to the 9, saying that it was going to be a competitor to the likes of Gran Turismo and Forza, but when it arrived on the scene, it did so by smashing into the 10 cars in front of it. It was a pile-up of a disaster that was just unseen, unheard of before. Despite Drive Club receiving numerous large delays prior to release, enough so that it missed the PS4 launch window entirely, it hit stores in a terrible state regardless, with the game's online infrastructure failing to work as intended, preventing players from engaging with its social multiplayer. And as a result, sales were relatively soft out of the gate, which combined with the fast hemorrhaging player base, seemingly condemned Drive Club to the dustbin of time within a few short months of release. Yet developer Evolution Studios ultimately ended up supporting the game for 18 months after its release, and there was enough positive groundswell that Games Radar even went back and re-reviewed the game and gave it a 4.5 out of 5. That was a significant jump up from their original score. Even though Evolution was closed by Sony in 2016, the game's servers were actually kept online all the way up until March 2020, by which point it became the most played PS4 racing game and it cemented its reputation as one of the greatest racers of the last decades. So yeah, going from a raging skip inferno to being a super high-class supercar, that took a lot of work, but we got there eventually. And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 video games that died but came back stronger. I hope you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. And remember to put your suggestions for next week's episode down there as well. I love reading all of your comments, so big love to you, my friends. And if you want to share that love, come over to the social medias where I'm at RetroJ, but the O is a 0 on most platforms over there, and you can follow Dan, my lovely editor, over here as well. Now, before I go, I just want to say one thing. Even though we spoke today about games that didn't start off great but put the time and effort into improving themselves, well, you know what? We can apply that to our own lives as well. Sometimes we're not going to be the best at what we want to achieve straight out of the gate. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes energy and focus. So what I want you to do, my friends, is not beat yourself up if you try to get to a situation and you struggle to overcome it. That's perfectly fine. Just remember that you're not alone in trying to get over your problems, okay? Remember, you've got friends, family, professionals in the support industry, people who care about you and want you to do well. So treat yourself with that love and respect, and remember, you're not alone. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.